Oh, are you missing your mic?
Okay, you should begin.
Okay, I will call the meeting of Middleton Common Council for April 3rd, 2018 to order. And the first item is the roll call.
Burke?
Here.
Olson? Here. Sullivan?
Here.
Petrick? Here. Ramsey?
Here.
Richard? Here. Teal?
Here.
West?
Present.
Okay, so the next item is the comments from the citizen present, and we're going to start with the presentation from the Boy Scouts. Michael?
It's 5 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Mays, and I'm here tonight representing Boy Scout Troop 140 from Middleton, Wisconsin, along with the Glaciers Edge Council of Scouting. I'm 16 years old and currently hold the life rank in Scouting. I've been involved with Scouting and the Glaciers Edge Council for over a decade now, with 5 years as a Cub Scout and another 5 years as a Boy Scout. I've been a Madison native my entire life and currently attend Edgewood High School. This evening, I will inform you on some of the accomplishments and notable achievements of the Glaciers Edge Council this past year, and why I have been chosen to be a part of the Glaciers Edge Council for all of my scouting experiences. For anyone not familiar with the council, the Glaciers Edge Council serves youth in Adams, Columbia, Dane, Dodge, Grant, Greene, Jefferson, Iowa, Lafayette, Richland, Rock, Sauk, and Walworth counties. There are 4 districts in Glaciers Edge: Wisconsin River, Yahara, Indian Trail, and Mohawk. Of these districts, the Glaciers Edge Council served 6,786 youth with the assistance of 2,769 adult volunteer leaders in 2017. These youth were members of 255 different scouting units throughout South Central Wisconsin. Now, those units are combined Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. But of the Boy Scouts, 122 young men from our council earned their Eagle Scout honor, the highest award in scouting, and a very difficult award to achieve. Some of these 122 men were even members from my own troop here in Middleton. 9 of those Eagles were from Middleton, which is the largest troop in the area. With Troop 140 being one of the largest troops in the council, we partake in many service projects over the year, one of them being our annual Scouting for Food project. With this project, we collected over 99,000 pounds of food as a council, all which was donated to local food banks. With all of the service hours provided by members of the council, the total reached over 41,000 hours of service that benefited schools, parks, nonprofit organizations throughout the council in 2017. The largest scout camp in our council, Camp Castle Rock at Ed Bryant Scout Reservation, once again camped over 1,000 Boy Scouts and continues to be the fastest growing camp in the Midwest. Along with being open year-round for winter and weekend camping, the camp has an excellent summer camp program, which currently has over 1,200 boys signed up to attend this upcoming summer. Some reasons for this high attendance and the camp being our largest is because it is still the only camp in the state that offers an ATV and a jet ski program. In addition to these activities, plans are underway to build a new climbing and rappelling tower, which will stand 65 feet tall. The tower will also include a high ropes course and dual 1,200-foot zip lines. When completed, it will be the largest tower in the state, making Camp Castle Rock quite extraordinary. Although Castle Rock has many amazing features, there are still other desirable camps in the council, such as Camp Indian Trails near Janesville. In 2017, construction was completed on our new 6-acre pond for Cub Scouts at Camp Indian Trails. This project will be the centerpiece of our Cub Scout Aquatics program that will include swimming, boating, and fishing. Also, construction is underway for a new shower house at camp in order to meet the needs of the growing camping program. In conclusion, scouting will still remain strong in Wisconsin and in the Glaciers Edge Council, as evidenced by the participation numbers along with the amount of boys reaching the rank of Eagle. By receiving this award, it shows that not only are boys participating in Scouts, but also growing and have the desire and work ethic to attain an honor such as this. Scouting is not only strong, but also growing as new facilities and programs are being put in place to account for the growing numbers. This concludes my report on the council's status, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to not only speak today, but also be a part of this Scouting tradition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other Scout leader who would like to speak? Okay. All the Scout leaders, please stand up. Let's get them, all of them, big hands. Thank you guys what you're doing for the community and the Scouts. So the next speaker is Gabriel Inahara, the director of our youth center.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite you all to the Youth Center's 4th Annual Spring Showcase. It will be next Thursday, October 12th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. It's really the one event every year where we invite families and community members to come see all of the amazing projects that our Youth Center students have worked on throughout the year. So they've been working on poster displays, we'll have a video display going, showing all the different clubs that they've been participating in, everything that they've been learning. It is a drop-in, kind of open house style event, so you don't need to come for the entire hour and a half. There will be light refreshments, and then at 6 p.m. we're going to have a short performance. We have an all-girls hip-hop dance group right now that is being choreographed by 2 of our own students, and so they're very excited to perform at the event. We may have a couple other small performances as well. And some of our partner programs, like the Girls Inc. of Greater Madison program, will also be in attendance, along with the outreach librarian from the city of Middleton. So we hope you can make it out to support our students and to support the Youth Center. You all provide us with a lot of support throughout the year, so it's a great opportunity to come see what's actually going on over there every day. So we hope you can join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Anybody else who might want to speak? Okay, I'm going to close that part of the meeting, and now we are to approve of the consent agenda.
Second.
So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next item is the proclamations, and I'm going to read first the National Public Safety Telecommunications part. Do you want to say anything?
I do, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Wendy McKnight, who's our comm center supervisor, and she's going to accept your proclamation on behalf of all the dispatchers for the Middleton Police Department.
Wonderful.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and read it and then bring it to yourself. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas emergency can occur at any time that require the prompt response of police, fire, or emergency medical services, which are critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent on the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the Middleton Police Department Communications Center, and whereas public safety dispatchers are the first responders and often the first critical contact our citizens have with emergency services and are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas 2018 marks the 50th anniversary of the first 911 call made in Haleyville, Alabama in 1968. And the public safety dispatchers at the Middleton Police Department answer approximately 3,400 911 calls annually. And whereas the staff of Middleton Police Department Communication Center have a combined total of 95 years of service to the Middleton community and exhibit compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their duties. Now therefore, that the city of Middleton declares the week of April 8th through April 14th, 2018 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the city of Middleton, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job, Steve. Do we want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the proclamation.
I would second that.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Also, motion passes. So the next proclamation is National Library Week. Whereas libraries are not just about what they have for people, but what they do for and with people. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions, and library workers and librarians fuel efforts to better their communities, campuses, and schools. Whereas librarians are leaders in their institutions and organizations, in their communities, in the nation, and in the world. Whereas librarians continue to lead the way in leading the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. Whereas libraries and librarians look beyond their traditional roles and provide transformative opportunities for education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement, as well as new services that connect closely with the patrons' needs. Whereas libraries and librarians lead their communities in innovation, providing STEAM programming, market spaces, and access and training for new technologies. Whereas libraries are pioneers supporting democracy and effecting social change with a commitment to providing equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socio-economic status. Whereas libraries lead in working with diverse communities, including people of color, immigrants, and people with disabilities, offering services and educational resources that transform communities, open minds, and promote inclusion and diversity. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Broad, proclaim National Library Week, April 8th to April 14th, 2018. I encourage all residents to visit the library this week and explore what's new at your library and engage with your librarian. Because of you and our library leaders, libraries transform. Congratulations. So do we have motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to approve that proclamation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we are on to the agreements, and the first item under the agreement is the memorandum of understanding for lead collection study between the League of Municipalities and the City of Middleton.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Then all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. So the item number 2 under agreements, the first amendment to agreements dated 11/21/17 with Fairfiker Associates for Park Street and Gammon Road reconstruction.
Move approval is recommended by Public Works and Finance Committee.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? So the motion is to pass the first amendment of the agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion
Realize
passes
the
unanimously.
question is going to be closed.
Next one is the award of bid code professional services. Acceptance of proposal from League Recreation to supply playground for Orchid Heights Park.
Move approval is recommended by finance and PRC.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve the proposal for League Recreation to supply playground for Orchid Heights. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. The item number 2, award of quote to Max R for park signage.
Move approval is recommended by finance and PRC.
Second.
Any questions? So the motion is to approve the award of quote to Max R for park signage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. So the next one is award of professional services contract with Boley Tree and Landscape for tree planting.
Move approval is recommended by finance and PRC.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? The motion is to approve the contract with Boley for tree planting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed unanimously. Item number 4 under award of bids is the recommendation to accept proposal from Psyche Design for landscape architectural services for downtown plaza.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any questions or any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. We are on to the budget item. And first item is the request for tax incremental district number 3 funding for emergency drive access and pedestrian path, West Spring Pines condominium plan development district Pleasant View Road. So this is to defer.
Move deferral.
Second.
May I comment? I just want to make sure that you have the correct information because the Finance Committee did not. I went back and checked my notes. The values for the existing 44 buildings there are about $150,000 each. And that's what they're selling for. The other 76 are projected to sell at about $180,000. So I calculated $150,000 per unit for 76 units. And the taxes on that, the actual taxes, not the value of the property, will be $2 million over the life of the TIF, assuming 9 years in the ground. So I just wanted to make sure you had that information cleared up from the Finance Committee meeting. It's actually $2 million, 1.2 million of which are for the 3 buildings that could not be built but for the access road being built to Evergreen Road and the stormwater being moved. At the Finance Committee meeting, there was a discussion of the developer paying actual value for the stormwater that would be on city property. And I think that if you wanted to give that direction to the staff, we could negotiate that into an agreement. But I just wanted to make sure you weren't acting upon the incorrect information.
Okay, Brian?
I'll start. I don't think that cures what I think finance considered the fatal flaw here, which is that the developer has to use city property for its stormwater management. So I think the deferral was that you go back and negotiate somehow either to get the developer to put that stormwater pond on its own property or to figure out how to get that included, the purchase of city land for whatever is open for the council to agree to, that becomes part of the negotiation.
Right, just to be clear, then that means the developer would have to cut out one of the buildings or some of the apartments, and then it's less value altogether. So I'm just asking you to weigh the value of the development versus the,
That's not the case. You're making an assumption which I don't know that's correct. We just simply said two things. You've got to go back and negotiate a solution to these two issues and come back. It's simply a deferral. It's not that we're throwing it out the sidewalk. It's just that you need to go back and negotiate a little different understanding and a little different solution to the problem than what's on the proposal.
Susan?
Yeah, and I think it needs to be made really clear that we do not want to set a precedent of giving away land, city property for stormwater facilities.
I just said that you could charge the value of the land, so I don't know if you heard that part or not. That's what,
I think you need to negotiate that with the developer and make sure, because you've got two things to negotiate. You've got an item to negotiate that deals with the use of city property for private development, okay? And the second thing is you've got to talk to the town and get an agreement with the town to put a road in there. So you've got two things to develop, and to discuss and come to a conclusion on.
I'm just telling you the practical implication from the way this lays out on the site is that the developer would have to cut out a building or a half a building to make the access go and the stormwater fit on the site. The stormwater requirements now are greater than what they were when the developer bought the property.
He knew how many buildings were going to go on that property. When
He didn't know that the stormwater regulations would change at that time, and they did.
Okay, surprise.
Mike, he can still buy the land from the city. It's just we're opposed to having it given to him.
That's why I said you could make that part of your direction to the staff to negotiate that in the agreement.
I think we.
I think the deferral allows you to do that, to come back with what direction the council's giving you.
I wasn't getting any direction with the deferral, so I was hoping you would give me direction as the council on that, because
I thought there's a,
no, there were several people talking, and there was not a motion of any direction to the staff as to what to do. So,
So you want a specific motion directing you to do something?
yes, that would be very helpful.
so Mark, do you want to amend this? In a way that, or you want to make a separate motion for that after
No, I
this?
think you can amend the deferral
You can just-
to say that it's deferred until we see an agreement that incorporates the stormwater on the developer's property.
Okay, so is that acceptable?
I think
Okay.
that captures this finance sentiment.
Okay, so is that this?
I'll make that amendment.
Okay, so all those, any other discussion?
I would just point out, because I thought I saw a quizzical look on Mike's face, that if they develop the retention pond, detention pond, whatever it's called, on their property, that doesn't have to be their existing property, it could be property that they purchase to extend their current property, so that is one of the options on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
We talked at length about.
Okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes. Therefore, motion passes.
What am I missing?
Okay, the next one is the concept review request for tax increment district number 3 assistance high site enterprises.
Move approval is recommended by the Plan Commission and by everybody involved.
Okay.
Finance Committee.
Okay, any-
Works, everybody.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of the motion to through the concept review for high site, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so now we are, could we go to, well, I guess we can go. So we are on to ordinances. The first reading, the final action may be taken upon approval of the motion to suspend rules under section 1.07 Middleton General Ordinances. Number 1, the ordinance to amend parking restriction on North High Point Road.
Move approval is recommended by LNO to amend parking restrictions on North High Point Road.
Are you suspending the rules?
Second.
Do you want to wait?
You want to wait? Second.
No, I think not, in case
Okay.
someone...
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion for the parking restriction on North High Point Road, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Was that just first reading?
Yeah, just the first reading. So the ordinance prohibiting parking in fire lanes, I don't know.
And I would move approval of the ordinance prohibiting parking in fire lanes and recommend suspending the first reading.
Okay?
Second.
Second? Okay, any questions or discussion? All those in favor of the motion for the ordinance prohibiting parking in fire lanes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Item number 3, ordinance to require immediate collection of animal waste in private property of another.
And I move approval of the ordinance to require immediate collection of animal waste on private property of another, and again, waive the first reading.
Don't you mean to say waive the second reading?
Second reading, I'm sorry.
Okay, so need a second.
Suspending the rules.
Okay.
Suspending action.
So this was a problem, I suppose, right? So that's why, okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Ordinance to prohibit unauthorized deposit of materials on private property.
And I move approval of the ordinance to prohibit unauthorized deposit of materials on private property and suspend the rules for the second reading.
Second.
So this is, again, there was some problem there.
This is to prevent trespassing to pick up your dog's poop on private property.
Okay. Okay, any questions or discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Or anything else that goes on.
Boy, so the dog, we now have a dog, so we know what it means.
Deal with chickens next.
Ordinance amending the general implementation plan for the community of Bishop Bay, the Black Line neighborhood, increased density.
I'll move that we reject the amendment.
What?
Reject the amendment.
Second.
Okay, any question or discussion?
I'd like to make a comment. We have in front of us a memo from Phil Simon, and it does look just, it shows 2 emergency rules on here, so it does look a little different than what we'd be voting on.
I'd just like to add that the Westport Planning Commission rejected this amendment, as well as the joint Middleton Westport Planning also rejected this amendment, the concept of this amendment.
Yeah, go ahead. Dan.
A couple things to pass out, share with you. First of all, the Middleton Planning Commission approved this and recommended approval. The Westport staff has told city staff and me that even though the members of their joint committee voted against this, but don't let that hold up the city. If the city wants to approve this, we're not offended. They said, we understand the city may want to approve this. They have a homeowner, out there who's just opposed to any of our developments. This before you tonight is there's a map here, and what you're doing is you're amending this master development plan, which we were asked by city staff to do. And we are removing 75 units in this zone circled in red. And we're adding some land area here. And then at the Notre Dame Village site, we would have 8 units. So if you take 75 units that we're removing, 8 that we're keeping, we're actually removing 67 units. So we're taking down the density of this neighborhood, we're reducing it. We're also reflecting the reality of how it was platted, and what we can ask to do in terms of not developing the driving range, so we're giving that up. So we're giving up 75, we're asking to keep 8 at Notre Dame Village, so we're giving a net 67. We're asking you to approve the revised plan before you, which was requested by staff that we do this and put it before you, and your plan commission has recommended approval. I'd also add here that there's another document I want to pass out, and this council, the prior council's approval of Bishop's Bay stated that there will be adjustments. Some adjustments may be made between neighborhoods, allowing, quote, allowing a measure of flexibility, unquote. Also, quote, must allow for responsiveness to the future market, unquote. So it was anticipated that in fact, as the development occurred, we would in fact update the master plan, and we would be making adjustments to it to reflect reality as we continue to plan and develop. You can't do a project this size and predict, 10 years ago exactly what's going to happen over a 20-year life of a project like this. There's going to be some changes. So we're giving up a lot here. We're asking for very little, and therefore we're asking for you to approve it. If you don't approve it, then we don't have an approved master plan, and I still have 75 units. So I'm open for questions.
So Church, you'll still stay under the 2,950, it'll be right at that?
That's correct. That cap remains in place. All we're doing is shifting units
And it will go
between
up to
neighborhoods.
that yet, or will that be less the 75 and plus the 8?
So there's an overall cap on the whole development of 29, I think it's 29 to 50. So we can't exceed that no matter what, right? So let's, for example, in Westport, we're doing slightly fewer units just because in terms of what we can physically fit there. And so we'll have so-called leftover units there. When we're done on the Westport side, we could shift those and build, say, more apartments in the town center, maybe. I'm just hypothetically speculating here. So we could shift units around within the neighborhoods, but we do have this cap that we have to live within, right?
So I'd just like to make a couple comments. Number one, the city did not request that you do this. This is this is for your interest. You and the city have an agreement for the back 9 neighborhood, which capped the number of units. And this agreement was made 3 years ago. And that's what the current status is. Okay? There was an allowance at the time that said that as this develops, we understand that you may or may not be able to fill up your neighborhoods, and that there would be some accommodations to move units from one place to another.
Right.
But the issue is that the back 9 neighborhoods are done. The council said they were done 3 years ago. That's quite clear in the minutes. You were capped at a specific number of units for this neighborhood as per the council. Okay?
I disagree with you.
Then
The council, okay, we reviewed.
The council said you're capped.
Okay, that's not true. That's patently not true. We've checked the videos. You will not find any motion, any approval or resolution that reflects that statement. I understand that a council member made that statement. I understand that it was put into the minutes, but it was not part of the approval, and I never agreed to it. And if it had been in the resolution, I would have spoke up if it was part of that resolution, but it wasn't. And you show me, please show me a resolution. I've asked repeatedly for you and staff to show me that resolution, but it doesn't exist.
I believe that the motion encompassed the minutes of the planning commission. The minutes of the planning commission said that the number was capped.
The minutes do not govern. The resolution of the council is what governs. The minutes reflect discussion. The resolution did not include any kind of condition or constraint that you're talking about. Also, we have not amended this map yet. This is what we're doing tonight, and we were asked specifically by staff to do this. I did not make this up. I was asked by Eileen to amend this map, which we should do. It's the right thing to do. And we are offering to give up these units. I understand you disagree, I get that. But the facts are the facts. We're amending it to remove this area. We're amending it to keep 8 units in the back 9 area. And we're amending it to reflect changes in boundary lines of the plat and the parks as they were platted.
So that,
Terrence, I'm sorry, right? I'm very sorry that these facts are getting in your way.
I understand, but show me a resolution.
The city said that you were done in the back number.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. You show me a resolution. I'm sorry, but that's just not true. A council member made that comment, but it's not a resolution. It is not an approved fact. Okay, all kinds of things get said in minutes of meetings and get said in meetings, right? And we have to go by what the final group decision is in the motion. We don't go by what individual members say.
But that was the motion, and I just wanted to correct a couple of things. One is,
Show me the video.
well, what I told Terrence is that if he wanted to have a rezoning, he needed to ask for a map amendment, which is what he finally applied for last fall. I didn't ask for these additional 8 units. That was, and what we also asked for as a planning staff is to have the overall GDP amended to reflect changes that have been made to date, but not to add 8 units. That I just said, this is the process if you want to ask for it. So we had a rezoning hearing. And the 75 units, those aren't even part of the neighborhood. So you didn't give them up. They're not part of the neighborhood because you didn't buy them. You didn't buy the acreage.
so just one thing, now, Eileen, so from what I remember, so Terrence or T-Hall, they have brought to the Plan Commission the proposal, and the Plan Commission didn't like it, sent it back. So they modified it, and this is the proposal that the Plan Commission was comfortable with.
And the Plan Commission did vote 4-2 to recommend approval. They have changed it to a certain extent. You know, they made it single story, 8 duplex units versus 12 single family homes.
And they provided that file link, so all of those objections which were there, they were addressed.
And there are some issues outstanding, so I just want to point those out to you. And if you go back and read and look at the video, because I did it, basically the motion of the Planning Commission and then as adopted by the council was that this finishes the density, as Mark Sullivan said. It does say at the Planning Commission, if you wanted to propose something in the future, you would have to treat that as a complete zoning amendment or rezoning of that, which is what then he did apply for. But Alder Sullivan is correct in that at the time that that approval was given, it was for the 4.2 units per acre.
Now it's 3.9 after adding that 7
If you shift 7 acres of parkland into the neighborhood boundary, which they could conceivably have done at the time that the neighborhood was adopted, then it does, and you only allow 8 more units, it does drop the density. But I just want to point out that I didn't ask you to add 8 units, and Alder Sullivan was right that the expectation at the time was this completes the density.
that the black line was complete.
Right, you're correct that you did not ask to add the units. You asked us to do this, to come back and go through this process of amending the master development plan.
Because in my mind, you'd already done the SIP, as Alder Sullivan said,
Right.
and then that set the pattern for the neighborhood.
I do want to point out that the ownership of the land is irrelevant. We don't own most of this land. We have it under contract, and we buy it in pieces as we plat. So, and that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
But it does mean that you're not giving up the units because you're not adding it to your neighborhood.
But we don't own most of this land right now. We have it under
Right, but you
contract.
intend to.
Okay, so let's deal with what we have on hand. I think,
I'm just clarifying that.
yeah, so.
So the bottom line is, I mean, the question is this. I mean, we're doing the process we were asked to do. We have a planning commission recommendation for approval. We're talking about 8 units here that we're talking about. We've given up a lot over the years. We've never asked for anything in exchange for giving that up. We didn't ask for a quid pro quo. We gave those things up when those discussions came up, and we've made lots of changes. And now we're asking for 8 units as an appropriate buffer between the town. We established that the easement for the woods. We've done everything that's been asked of us, and we're asking for 8 lousy units, out of 3,000 here. We've got to know that when we go forward with a development like this, this large, that there's going to be some flexibility and there's going to be some change. And, we can't get locked in. I mean, if the market changes, we're going to have to change and respond. There's tremendous risk in this project.
It's a huge development, so any other questions?
So I just want to just comment again. And I think that the Westport Planning Commission had it correct, is that there's no compelling reason for us to reopen this discussion. We had an agreement in place in 2015. The pretext to getting more density in this area is essentially taking parkland that was originally part of another neighborhood and slapping it in the back 9 to be able to say that we can put more density in there. Again, that is contrary to the agreement that was in place in 2015. It just doesn't make sense that we have a development that's this large and it's going to continue for another 15 to 20 years, that we continue to reopen things that should be closed. I just think that we're just asking ourselves from a process perspective. Once we determine that one of these neighborhoods is done, especially with all of the acreage that's still available for development, that we continue to load stuff into these essentially completed neighborhoods. It's just not the way we should be doing business. We have an agreement, we should keep to the agreement and move on to the next area.
You have, Kathy, you have something?
Yeah, so Westport didn't want to open up the discussion again.
Correct.
Does anyone know what the Middleton, the joint?
Well, the joint committee was the one that voted 5-0 to recommend, but they recognize also that they are advisory. But they, for the reasons that Alder Sullivan was talking about, they felt like there wasn't a compelling reason. Terrence is right. We did say if you want to ask for more, you have to go through this process, so he was right with that. But I just wanted to clarify all the other things. This development proposal has come a long way. A year ago or 13 months ago, it was for 12 single-family lots, and we said that doesn't fit. There's still some issues, to deal with if the council did want to move ahead with it, and that hasn't been resolved yet. The water service issue, emergency access, they have made changes that have made it more palatable, which is why I think our planning commission voted to make a recommendation, so that's why it's here.
The one emergency road would be sufficient that's locked?
Yeah, they would probably have to reconfigure their parking lot that's proposed. But
For these eight units?
For the 8 units, but the emergency access right now goes into the parking lot for the apartments, or the proposed third unit, or third apartment building. And that's part of what the Westport Joint Committee said, you know, this lot was planned, it was planned for open space, tree easement, parking, and emergency access for the apartments. Now, you know, one of the things that the Plan Commission said and the Joint Committee has said, if you can have full access to Callaway Court, that might work, but he wasn't able to obtain that, it's just emergency access.
So Eileen, where is that 7.5 acres coming from? Is that,
It's land that was already platted as parkland. Mr. Sullivan's correct. What the general development plan says for this is there's general densities per neighborhood, and the neighborhood boundaries would be determined by map 3, which is the subject of the potential zoning amendment. And that would include, and it says specifically in the general development plan, that would include rights-of-way and some parkland. They didn't happen to include the 7 acres of parkland that they're wanting to shift into the back 9 neighborhood originally. They could have they could have done that, and we probably wouldn't be in this situation, but we did carefully calculate the number of acres that they had in the back 9 neighborhood 3 years ago and say it's 4.2 times the number of acres, worked out to about 333, I think, units. That's what they have. Now they want to add 7 acres of parkland. It would actually bring down the density and increase the number of units by 8. So it was kind of tough to explain it all because it's been going out over a year and it's shifting parkland. Now, if they propose to do that unilaterally across the whole development, we would have an issue. Because there's a certain number of units, there's issues of utilities, there's traffic analysis that's been made for this whole project. So we do have to also be careful not to have that,
so maybe it may be best they go back and fix those things before bringing it back? Would that be the better way to go? Or
To do what?
to take it back and fix the things which you are saying which needs to be done?
Like the water service and if the council is so inclined that you could ask them to develop that. Again, I think the single-story nature of it, they won't be seen from the highway or adjacent neighbors, which is the positive thing. They're duplexes, they would be owner-occupied. They still access through the apartments, but they also said they were fairly high-end too, so it is.
Just to clarify, those details are handled at the SIP level. We're not even trying to address those right now. We don't need to. Secondly, I just want to also clarify that when we talk about shifting parkland, there's no shifting of parkland going on here. Your ordinances, your laws required us to dedicate that land as part of this neighborhood. That was your requirement by law. Okay, we don't do something underhanded. This is a requirement, and we fulfilled it.
And I wasn't suggesting that you were doing it.
But I wanted to clarify.
No, I wasn't suggesting that. I was saying that's how the general development plan reads. Neighborhoods based on the boundaries, and some of them are going to have parkland. So it moves what was already dedicated. They did dedicate it as part of this first phase, back 9. So it's a separate way of looking at it.
So just to clarify, the original plotting of back 9 did not include this parkland.
The phase
The first
3,
map.
the first map did
Did
not.
not include the parkland.
The phase 3, right. Well, map 3 didn't include it.
All right, thank you.
Right. Phase 3 plat of the back 9 neighborhood did include it. So,
But when we developed the densities for the neighborhood, that parkland was not included in the calculations.
right.
This was the agreement that all parties agreed to, and that capped the number of units for this neighborhood at 4.2.
How does that affect the other neighborhoods' densities by moving it from into the back 9? Does that change any of theirs or bring them?
Well, that's a good question. This was taken from parkland that isn't assigned to any particular neighborhood.
Right, okay.
It will be dedicated, as Terrence said, with individual neighborhoods as they develop and as they're required.
So the remainder of this land would be, as the dedicated to neighborhoods as they develop?
It'll be dedicated by them, whether the boundary changes is what I was talking about, because then that's going to increase the density
Okay,
in a particular area.
I see.
And it does say flexibility in the ordinance, or in the general development plan, but it also, Mark's also right, that the SIP didn't show it. And Terrence is right that they have made a lot of changes, so, and it's a tough issue.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you want to talk a little bit about the water issues? What is the?
Well, the Callaway Court, which is a private street, has a public water easement, a public water main easement, and a public water main. So they would likely extend that. There's issues of water quality. It can likely be done, but they don't have it designed yet. And I understand that, it's one thing that they would have to work on. But there's an issue of how long that line goes as a dead end, and would they need to loop it? The original plan showed it being put into the private land, or the private main that's serving the apartments, but with like some type of backstop, so that they're not necessarily connected.
Okay.
But, so they might have to loop it, that would be one thing. And then, like I said, the emergency access is another one, just to be sure that the fire department is okay with just one, because they did ask for 2 different ones, but, hopefully they would be willing to just have one if they reconfigured it.
But that goes to SIP, or that should be done now on the year?
Well, for sure, if there's any, if it moves ahead, it needs to be part of the conditions of approval, because that does have to get worked out, or it doesn't work.
Okay. Okay, any other question or discussion? Yes, Howard.
Mark, let me ask you a question if I could. I'm trying to get my hands around all the pieces that you're shoving around on top of the table here. There's a 7-acre, whatever it is, piece of city-owned parkland, correct?
No, it is, my understanding, well, I'm not sure that it's been dedicated yet.
Oh, it has not been dedicated?
I don't know if it has or not. It's planned to be dedicated if it has not been already.
So
It has been?
It hasn't.
It hasn't been?
It has been.
Well, it has been dedicated to the city. And they want you, Terrence is requesting to take that property back?
No, he's requesting that property be considered part of the back 9 neighborhood so that he can add more units to the back 9 neighborhood. It's not currently considered part of the back 9 neighborhood. Right, so it's just a math formula, right? So if you add more acreage that's not developed.
Since when did we consider parkland property part of a development like that?
It's
troubled by that.
No, it's part of the calculation of the gross acreage that says that, right? So if you have more acreage that's not being developed, you can make the other pieces of it more dense. Essentially.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The general development plan says the neighborhood boundaries will include all rights of way in some parkland.
Okay.
So it still stays parkland. It doesn't shift from that. It just, the line for the neighborhood goes over a little bit. The overall density does go down from 4.2 to 3.9, and that would be, going forward, that would be the density.
Any other comments, Howard?
No, I am just amazed at, and I'm amazed in a good way and in a bad way. The bad way is, here we sit, 8:30 on council night arguing about plan commission issues. Okay? And the good thing is that there's a plan for that area that says, well, we're gonna kind of do what we want to do before we're all done. We've got some general areas and we want to move stuff around, we want to add this and add that. And I see where that's almost necessary in a development this big. Okay, we have to be understanding that stuff is going to change. But we also have to be understanding that at some point in time, you drive a stake in the ground and go on with the next piece, so.
I think that's the important piece here, is that the city and the developer agreed 3 years ago that we were done. right? That the back 9 neighborhood was complete and that any future development would be in some of the other areas.
Okay. Any other comments, Robert, or anyone else?
So the motion is to deny the amended change.
Okay, do we want a roll call vote, or?
I don't think we need one.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes, motion to reject passes 7-1. Okay, so the next one is recommendation, request for endorsement of a unit development investment grant application, the Addison Austrian Capital Group LLC, 6818 University Avenue.
Move approval is recommended by the finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
I do. Irene?
We're almost done.
So, not specific to this property, more as a general question. I think the last time we had an apartment project in front of us, we talked, sorry, that's fine. We talked about density, we talked about the percentage of single-family houses versus apartments, and where we were looking to have Middleton be. And we talked about, does it get to a point where there are too many apartments being approved, and do we need to be looking at this? I like this project. When someone tells me that things like this will be happening on University Avenue, and that's, you know, we can't stop that progress, I believe that, and I think that is probably the place that we'll be seeing the most development. My question is, going back to that discussion, when we, you know, approved 200 and something units, where are we with that percentage of single-family housing versus apartments, and when does it get to be, I mean, how many apartment buildings do you have in the works right now?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that we calculated recently the number of new multifamily housing units over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think we came up with 1,500 that either have been approved or are in the works. But I think the most comprehensive look that we've taken at this recently was at the retreat. And we gave the presentation on infill development, and Eileen's portion of the presentation presented numbers about what the percentage split was between single family and multifamily housing over the last several decades. And I believe, if I'm recalling her presentation correctly, in the 60s we were a little over 50% multifamily and a little less than 50% single family, and we expect that we're probably similarly situated right now. The best data, of course, that we get is the decennial census. So we're kind of at this point relying on census figures plus building permit numbers. So it's compiling, you know, from 2 separate data sources. We're probably at about 53% multifamily and 47% single family. One of the things that we heard during the comprehensive plan public input sessions, we hosted 9 public input sessions, and time again, we heard the demand for workforce housing. So that was one thing that really stood out when we kind of surveyed the community, or at least the members who came to the meetings, that there's a strong demand for workforce housing in Middleton. And when you look at that number of new, you know, multifamily housing that's being constructed, you also need to take a look at the new jobs that have been created in Middleton, because you know, I think our goal is that people who work in Middleton can also find a place to live in Middleton. We have a draft of the update to our comprehensive plan, the housing element of that plan, and it is available on our planning website. If you go to comp plan, and then you can look at the new sections that we've drafted. And this project clearly aligns with the goals in the comp plan as far as locating housing, infill development and housing on primary arterials that are well served by bus transit, that have close access to amenities like Willie Street Co-op right across the street, close to jobs, and to me, this location is a prime location for Annfield development.
And again, I don't have a problem with this project. It's just going back to that concept of the whole. And I know, you don't have to deal with me after this month, so that's fine. But when I think about Middleton, I think about 10, 20 years down the line. I mean, are we gonna wanna be at 55%, 60% apartments? I mean, yes, millennials want apartment housing now. They have student loan debt now. When they finish paying off that student loan debt, what are they gonna wanna do? They're gonna wanna buy homes, they wanna have babies. I mean, it is that simple. So what are we gonna do with the apartments? Workforce housing has to also include being able to buy your first home.
Right, and I guess I would argue that it's not that simple because it's not just millennials. We're seeing a national trend. It's baby boomers saying that they don't want to maintain a yard anymore. So when I say multifamily housing, those are not all rental units.
Right.
And that's one thing that I think is a common misconception when we talk about 53% and 47%. Because many of those 53% are condos that are owner occupied. I don't know the numbers, but I know that our split between renter and owner is different. And of course, many single family homes are renter occupied. But like I said, I think that there's still quite a strong demand for multifamily housing. I mean, we just talked about another project where the city might, be looking at doing a project that could potentially include that. So I think that there's, the demand is still there. We're hearing it all the time. We're hearing the need for workforce housing. The project looks great. The way that it's designed, I think, is really fantastic. And this is a project that's happening outside of a TIF district, and they're willing to include workforce housing. I think that's really phenomenal.
Any other questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve the request for endorsement of the CDA grant.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. So,
Thank you for your help, folks.
thank you. So the next one is a convening to closed session.
So moved.
Need a second?
Do we need to do this?
Does anyone feel
Why do we have to go
need
on a closed session first?
I'm good.
Because it's kept secret.
Yeah, just move on.
We can skip it?
Yeah.
We can skip it, right?
It's up to you. Never have to go closed.
Okay, all right, so let's move into under open session real estate purchase and sale agreement with William and Sue Hine, item number 1.
I'll move approval as recommended by finance for the purchase of both properties.
Okay, so that's 1 and 2.
2.63.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion?
Just to be
Okay,
clear, this includes item 1 and 2.
Right.
yes. Mike, you have something to say?
Yes, I'd just like to clarify this because George will speculate on it if we don't state what it is that we intend to do. What we intend to do is to buy the properties and then see them redeveloped through a request for proposals from local developers. Pick the best proposal and have this property redeveloped to its highest and best use, Parmenter Street corridor. That's it in a nutshell.
Greg, do you want to say anything more what Mark said?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
The value is 2.63 million, is that what you heard? Or-
No, I think we're good.
And just for the record, I sometimes like when George speculates, it's quite humorous, so.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor of the motion to buy these two properties, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second, we are adjourned.
Yeah, that's what it is.